Well, it was obvious that RMIT should present an exhibition of Peter Corrigan. He's Australia's leading maverick architect and for over 40 years one of the most original and stimulating voices in architectural practice.
Peter can be a very dry and funny person, as we all know. The work actually uses humour as a critical technique. It's kind of a thing about, exposing the humanity of the work and exposing a kind of aspect of frailty of what the work represents. Not the frailty of the work, but actually about the human experience. And Peter uses wit and humour and travesty and opposition and all of those techniques really in a way that enriches the work.
Building 8 is probably the best known example of a number of accretions that he's thefted from away from culture around us. The corner column is one side of Bracusi's Gate of Love, and there's a suggestion here that it's towards his wife, Maggie, who holds the building up.
He divides his passions, so created hundreds of operas, ballets, drama, 3 times as many theatre productions as architectural creations. Like any authentic thinker, Peter's mind is a tangle of influence, but his own articulation of architecture, set and costume design is distinct.
There's a very strong link between Peter's set or scenography and architecture, but in that both of them are directly aimed at provocation, and provocation rather than relaxation. And that Peter demands either of his audience sitting in the dark or his audience being participants wandering and journeying through his buildings, a sense of adventure and a sense of being alive to complex, contradictory emotions and feelings. So Peter works on the stage by using very sharp shapes and very direct, almost aggressive attacks on the eye. And you could say that he employs some of that in his more provocative architecture. So there's a direct link in not so much how he achieves it, but what he's trying to achieve, which is something more than a relaxed, contented, small L, liberal, humanist happiness.
Right.
The world in Peter Corrigan's mind, and I would concur, is more complicated than that. And both our architecture and set design need to express that.
The experience of being in the exhibition, like encountering Peter's cluttered studio office, will be a dense world of images and the diverse objects that inspire and enrich his practice.
Peter's library was this kind of treasure trove of stuff from history that you could look at old German magazines from the 20s and see the interest. So if you were even half interested in the historical precedents of architecture, then Peter had it all there.
I heard about Peter's library as a student. I never had the experience to see it as a student, but when I was working with him, I would often have meetings in his library surrounded by spines staring back at me. And as a consequence of that, my own collection grew, largely by an interest in what Peter had on his walls, but also what Peter generously offered to me.
What that taught us was actually the value of ideas, and that there was this whole world of ideas that was siloed up in Peter's library that you could look at and also, imagine yourself being part of that world of ideas, if only you could do your work as well as others.
It became apparent that the exhibition needed to be more about his personality and unique character, and as much as a presentation of his work. And so it became an exploration into his mind and imagination as much as his design method. The experience of moving within the space will be like being immersed in the world of Peter, and hopefully is a little bit like him in character, so that it's playful and brazen and optimistic, and so that we can see how the wide cultural field of reference filters down into his work, which is a rarefied insight.